In a region already on edge, military exercises between Russia and Belarus are currently taking place near Poland, sending ripples of concern through the NATO alliance. Russian drones have been spotted in Polish airspace, forcing the country to act, shooting down hostile assets in what can only be described as Russia's boldest attack on a NATO ally in recent memory. The security situation in Europe is deteriorating rapidly, and Poland has reached its breaking point. The time for action has arrived. With tensions escalating, Poland has decided to send 40,000 troops to its border with Belarus, sending a clear and unmistakable message to Russia: Poland will not cower before Vladimir Putin. On September 11th, TVP World reported that Poland deployed 40,000 of its soldiers to the border shared with Russia's ally Belarus. Tensions continue to rise in what could become the Eastern Front in a potential war between NATO and Russia. While the increase in troop numbers was anticipated, given the proximity of military exercises involving Belarus and Russia, the sheer scale of Poland's deployment is impossible to ignore. Poland has two key reasons for this move. First, the joint military drills that Belarus and Russia conduct, known as the Zapad exercises, are highly concerning. These exercises have been a regular occurrence, with the last one taking place in 2022, the same year that Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, 3 years later, the Zapad 2025 exercises are set to begin on September 12th, lasting until September 16th. Thousands of Russian and Belarusian troops will simulate defense strategies against potential attacks. These exercises are expected to involve airstrikes, sabotage operations, and other combat scenarios, all occurring dangerously close to Poland's border with Belarus. The scale of Zapad 2025 remains a topic of debate. Belarus initially claimed that 13,000 troops would be involved, a figure that served to project power westward. Since then, however, relations between Russia and the United States have somewhat thawed, with ongoing peace talks concerning Ukraine. As a result, Belarus has revised its numbers, now claiming that about half of the initially announced troops will be involved, with the exercises taking place deeper within Belarus than initially stated. But there's a catch. In August, Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin revealed that much of the action would take place around 46 miles northeast of Belarus's capital, Minsk, though smaller units will carry out practical tasks much closer to the Polish and Lithuanian borders. It is these exercises that have raised alarm bells in Poland. The drills are happening to close for comfort, but even more concerning is the potential for hybrid warfare tactics to be hidden under the guise of military exercises. Poland has been preparing for this eventuality for months. Deputy Defense Minister Cezary Tomczyk made it clear that Poland has been getting ready for the Zapad 2025 maneuvers. Poland has conducted exercises involving over 30,000 Polish soldiers, as well as NATO allies, to ensure we are adequately prepared, Tomczyk said. And he didn't stop there. He issued a stark warning: let's remember that Zapad 2025 is an offensive exercise. The 40,000 soldiers now deployed to the border are clearly part of this preparation. Many of them likely participated in the exercises Poland has conducted in anticipation of these events. Should things go awry with the Russian and Belarusian troops near Poland's border, these soldiers are more than ready to respond with precision and purpose. Yet, the deployment of 40,000 soldiers is not solely in response to the joint exercises. 2 days before the announcement of this massive troop deployment, a concerning incident occurred that forced Poland to take additional measures. On September 10th, the Polish government revealed that it had been forced to shoot down several Russian drones that had entered Polish airspace during an attack on Ukraine. The Polish government had no choice but to call for help from its NATO allies to neutralize the threat. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski made it clear Poland would not stand by in silence while Russia violated its airspace. This event has sent shockwaves through Poland, with many seeing it as a deliberate provocation. Russia, of course, tried to downplay the incident, claiming the drones had veered off course and accidentally entered Polish airspace. But the excuses fell flat. There was no denying the reality of the situation. Poland is not buying Russia's denials, and has made it clear that this was an intentional act. It is in the wake of this attack that Poland decided to take further action. The country will close its border with Belarus at midnight on September 11th, likely keeping it closed until the Zapad 2025 exercises conclude on September 16. Prime Minister Donald Tusk cited national security concerns, blaming the joint military maneuvers for this drastic measure. The closure will include railway crossings and is a direct response to the threats posed by the Russian-Belarusian military drills happening so close to Poland's borders. Poland has made it clear that it is taking Zapad 2025 seriously. But a joint military exercise by Russia and Belarus alone isn't enough to explain the drastic troop deployment. While the exercises may involve troops near the border, Belarus's claims of a scaled-back number of troops participating simply don't align with the reality of Poland's response. There's something else at play here, something beyond the drills. The drone attack on Poland is a significant factor in the escalating tensions. It serves as a reminder that the threat from Russia is real, and Poland is no longer willing to sit idly by. With 40,000 soldiers now deployed and with the country taking unprecedented security measures, Poland is sending a resounding message to Russia: it will not back down. This situation continues to evolve, and the coming days will be critical in determining the next steps. The Zapad 2025 exercises are set to continue, and tensions will remain high as both sides prepare for the possibility of open conflict. But Poland's actions speak volumes. With 40,000 soldiers at the ready and borders closed to Belarus, Poland is positioning itself as a bulwark against Russian aggression in the heart of Europe. As Europe watches with bated breath, one thing is clear: Poland is not backing down. They arrived exactly where they were expected, and even managed to cause some property damage along the way. Fortunately, nobody was injured, Sikorsky said, though the entire strike was seen as a clear example of Russia's aggression spilling beyond the borders of Ukraine, even though the Russian Federation isn't officially at war with NATO. Sikorsky sent a clear message to Putin: Poland, the EU, and NATO will not be intimidated, and we will continue to stand by the brave people of Ukraine. It's time for the leadership of Russia to understand that the attempt to rebuild Europe's last empire is doomed to fail. Sikorsky had every reason to believe that Russia's claims of no involvement were false. The contradiction was immediately apparent. Russia had tried to claim that there was no evidence the drones Poland shot down had come from Russia, yet it also insisted that the drones had veered off course. It can't be both. Either Russia sent drones that went astray, entering Polish airspace, or the drones didn't come from Russia at all. If the latter was true, then the implication is that the drones must have come from Ukraine, but there's no reason for Ukraine to send drones towards Poland. Even if Ukrainian drones had gone off course, they would have been heading in the opposite direction, potentially hundreds of miles away from Poland's borders. The truth was clear: this was a Russian drone strike on Poland. On September 10th, the New Voice of Ukraine reported that Russia had begun to equip its Gerbera drones, which are based on the Iranian Shahed design, with extra fuel tanks to extend their flight range. The modification involved adding a second fuel tank to the drone's nose in addition to the one at the tail. The outlet offered photographic evidence to back up the claim. The obvious question now arises: why more fuel? Russia has repeatedly shown it can strike anywhere within Ukraine with the Gerbera drones, so why would it need to spend extra resources to increase the range of its drones? The only logical reason for this modification is that Russia intends to send these drones further, perhaps through Belarus and into Poland, just as it did on September 10th. Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, offered his thoughts on why Russia might have chosen to attack Poland so directly. According to Euromaidan Press, Zelensky suggested that the attack was meant to intimidate Poland and force it to reconsider its air support for Ukraine. Zelensky drew a disturbing parallel, noting that Russia's actions were reminiscent of its annexation of Crimea. The most terrible thing is that this attack is psychologically similar to Crimea, the Ukrainian president said. He added that drones had now replaced the little green men who had wreaked havoc in Crimea both before and during Russia's annexation. These little green men were soldiers wearing military fatigues with no insignia, enabling Russia to carry out its aggression while maintaining plausible deniability. Now, drones serve the same purpose, allowing Russia to send a message to Poland that it can attack whenever it wishes. Poland, however, will not be intimidated. Sikorsky made this abundantly clear. Yet, Russia's brazen drone attack has given Poland another reason beyond the military exercises taking place near its border to exercise caution. It remains unclear what weapons the 40,000 Polish soldiers will be bringing to the border. Perhaps they will be equipped with portable air defenses that could shoot down any drones that might accidentally cross the border while Russia and Belarus conduct their defensive exercises. Or perhaps they'll serve as a warning: Russia sent drones, and now Poland is sending soldiers in return. The big question now is, what will happen next? It's likely that direct fighting between Poland and the joint Russian-Belarusian forces involved in Zapad 2025 will be avoided. From Russia's perspective, such a conflict would be unwise, given that only small units of Russian troops are supposed to be participating in the exercises, assuming Belarus is telling the truth. It's possible that these forces will venture near the border to get a sense of Poland's defenses, but crossing the border seems unlikely. Poland, for its part, is not interested in launching an invasion of Belarus, which would almost certainly provoke Russia into counterattacks and give Putin an excuse to claim that NATO was responsible for escalating the situation. The truth, however, is that Russia's drones were the first act of aggression. Poland, like the rest of NATO, is far more interested in defending against Russia than provoking further conflict. Russia's drones were clearly a test, one designed to probe NATO's response to a direct, albeit small, attack on one of its member nations. Zelensky's theory aligns with this, as he pointed out that Russia seems to be testing whether Poland will back down from its support of Ukraine. In this context, Poland's response has been telling. It is sending 40,000 of its troops to the border, but it is not alone in its efforts. According to the BBC, other NATO members are also preparing to send soldiers, air defense systems, and artillery to reinforce Poland's position. Both the Czech Republic and the Netherlands have committed to sending additional defenses. The Netherlands will contribute 300 soldiers, along with artillery and air defense systems. The Czech Republic is preparing to send 100 soldiers and some helicopters. Germany, meanwhile, has pledged an entire brigade to Lithuania, given that the Baltic nation shares the same vulnerable border with Poland as Belarus. Additionally, 3 Rafale fighter jets from France will be heading into Poland, further strengthening the NATO presence along the eastern flank. The question remains, how will this all play out? With NATO allies moving to secure Poland's borders, Russia has certainly learned that its provocations are being met with a strong, unified response from the West. The coming days will likely reveal whether these military maneuvers remain just exercises or whether they escalate into something more serious. Poland, for its part, seems determined to show that it will not be intimidated, no matter how far Russia may go to test NATO's resolve. There is also speculation that the UK may get involved, although nothing official has been confirmed yet. Any involvement from the US remains uncertain as well. The US president, in an uncharacteristic move, has remained largely silent about the drones that entered Poland, offering only a brief and somewhat muted statement on Truth Social. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. It remains unclear if the "here we go" portion was meant to express exasperation or excitement, but as of now, the US has not provided much more than this statement. Still, Poland is satisfied with the response it's receiving from NATO. Poland's defense minister, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz Władysławko-SHE-NYHK-K-Mysz, addressed the Polish parliament, saying, Poland has repeatedly heard words of solidarity and empty gestures throughout its history. Today, we have concrete declarations. Kosiniak-Kamysz may have been drawing on memories of World War II, when Poland's allies stood by while the Nazis overran the country. While a handful of drones certainly doesn't compare to a full-scale invasion, Poland is suggesting that this drone attack from Russia is a warning shot that cannot be ignored. NATO's European members are clearly paying attention to Poland's plea. The immediate response from NATO is encouraging. The deployment of 40,000 Polish troops and the reinforcement of Poland's defenses by NATO allies demonstrate that Putin cannot push Poland around. But as Sky News pointed out on September 10th, there's another potential response that Poland could trigger: Article 4 of the NATO Charter. It's important to note that Article 4, not Article 5, could be triggered in this situation. Under Article 5, NATO allies are bound to come to the defense of any member nation under attack. Some might argue that Russia's drone strike on Poland could qualify as an attack strong enough to trigger Article 5, but Poland has yet to invoke that provision, at least not yet. Article 4 is a less intense step, but still significant. And NATO's official position is that under Article 4, any member nation can raise concerns about security threats, allowing NATO to discuss the issue at hand. It opens the door for consultations among NATO members, providing a forum for the exchange of information and ideas, as well as the development of a joint response. Triggering Article 4 sets the stage for an official, unified response to the aggressor's actions. Poland has done what was expected. It has triggered Article 4. The official NATO website states, on the 10th of September 2025, Poland requested to hold consultations in the North Atlantic Council under Article 4 following the violation of Polish airspace by multiple Russian drones. This marks only the 8th time Article 4 has been triggered since NATO's founding in 1949. This rare action should be a source of concern for Putin. He doesn't know what kinds of discussions are happening behind closed doors. NATO members who are now sending troops and equipment to Poland may have consulted with the country to understand what is needed. A broader consultation initiated by Article 4 could lead to Poland receiving significant reinforcements for its already fortified border. But it's not just NATO that is discussing Russia's drone attack. On September 11th, The Guardian reported that an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council would be held at Poland's request, likely to rally more international support for Poland's position. This is an interesting move by Poland because it could put Russia, one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, in the uncomfortable position of having to justify its actions. As a permanent member, Russia has the power to veto any resolutions that it feels would negatively impact its national security or foreign policy. Poland knows that Russia will likely use its veto power to block any resolutions that would hold it accountable, but that may not be the point. Poland may be looking to have a face-to-face confrontation with Russia in the Security Council, showing that it will not be intimidated by Russia's actions. How quickly any of this will unfold is still uncertain. While some NATO members have swiftly offered their support, others in the alliance are urging caution. One such voice is General Alexis Grinkowicz, NATO's supreme allied commander in Europe. On September 11th, he said, "We do not yet know if this was an intentional act or an unintentional act," and added that questions need to be raised about Poland's claim that Russia sent 19 drones into its territory. "I would not be able to tell you with any confidence today that it was 20 or that it was 10. We just have to get into the technical details to figure that out, to debrief the crews that were up to see what they saw." In other words, NATO is going to take its time. And so, we return to Poland and its 40,000 soldiers. With the Zapad 2025 exercises underway and Russian drones violating its airspace, Poland is taking action while it waits for NATO to move forward with its investigation. It has to take action. It could be days or even weeks before NATO fully understands what happened with the drone strike, but Poland cannot afford to sit idly by while the situation remains uncertain. The country is sending a clear message. As Russia tries to intimidate Poland and its NATO allies, it is facing a slow but inevitable loss of control in a region it desperately wants to hold. The derussification of Crimea has already begun, with Ukraine creating conditions that could lead to Russians fleeing the peninsula in droves. Stay tuned for more coverage of this critical situation, and don't forget to subscribe to Quest Mode for the latest updates on all the current affairs or situations from all over the world.